your career and life, regardless of your age. Now, here's your host, Lisa Downs.
Welcome to Reigniting You, where we talk all things career transition for those age 40 plus. I'm Lisa Downs, Seattle-based career and retirement transition coach. So happy to be here with you and our producer, Eric. Hi, Eric. Happy Halloween.
Hey, good afternoon and happy Halloween and happy Wednesday. It's a beautiful day here in the Pacific Northwest.
Yeah, absolutely. And hopefully all treats and no tricks on the show today. That's my attempt at some Halloween humor there for you, such as it is. But for today's show, we're excited because now that it's the fourth week of the month, today is the official debut of our Best Job, Worst Job episode. I'll be sharing listener stories, chiming in to offer career tips along the way, and we'll get started with that right after this first break.
Climbing the corporate ladder used to lead to success and a satisfying retirement. That ladder is now broken. You want to succeed today. Stop playing by yesterday's rules. 5 out of 6 millionaires started their own business. Now you can too. Introducing FranNet, your local franchise resource. With enough franchise options to fill CenturyLink Field, FranNet will help you find the right fit to realize your dream of being your own boss in a successful business. Be in business for yourself, not by yourself. Charlie McGee can help. Learn more at FranNet.com.
Hi, I'm Lisa Downs, career and retirement transition coach and host of Reigniting You on KKNW. I guide age 40-plus professionals to gain clarity, a renewed sense of purpose, and a career transition plan within 90 days so you can lead a fulfilling life regardless of your age. No longer does change have to mean riding off into the proverbial sunset. Let's talk about what your next phase of life can look like. Visit yournewaspect.com or call me at 425-216-3015. That's 425-216-3015. New Aspect Coaching. Fresh perspectives for your career.
Some people know a good thing when they hear it. Alternative Talk 1150.
Welcome back to Reigniting You, a new show that focuses on all aspects of making mid to late career transitions. Many thanks to our sponsor, FranNet, your franchise experts. So, Eric, back during our first episode about 3 weeks ago, you and I shared our own best and worst job stories. And
That's right.
And my worst job story was about being bombarded with what I called singing French baby music from the 90s while working at a clothing store. So did you happen to sample any of that?
Yeah, at the time I wasn't sure what exactly you were talking about, but I did remember this clip, this kind of one-hit wonder from this French kid named Jordy.
Yeah.
And let's jog everybody's memory in case they forgot about this thing.
No. That's it. That's it.
And he was literally a baby.
Literally
who
a
came up
baby.
with a song, and his
Singing in
parents
French.
put it to a dance track.
Yes.
Yeah, and it became a kind of a surprise hit back then in 1992.
Yes, absolutely. So, imagine that.
I didn't know this was a whole genre, though.
Oh, yeah, it was a whole thing. But imagine that in your ears for about, 6 to 8 hours a day.
No, thank you.
Yeah. I know the nightmares of which I speak. So that's hilarious. Well, I don't know if I'm happy or horrified that you found that.
a little flashback there
A little
for
flashback,
you, right?
yeah.
It's
Bit
funny
of
how
both.
music can really put
Yeah.
you back in a place like almost nothing else. Like
Absolutely.
a smell can probably do it, and music, and that's
And
about
singing
it, really.
French baby music.
Yes.
Same thing.
I just meant music in general, but
That
even
too.
French baby music can do the trick.
Well, the good thing is that none of our listener stories today involve music like that. So we're already a bit ahead of the game there, thankfully. So that's a good thing. So our first story comes from Jordan in Bellevue, who actually grew up in Illinois and shares his worst job was spending a summer detasseling corn. And that I know what I've heard is pretty hard, labor intensive work especially in the higher heat and humidity of the Midwestern U.S.
Now,
So yeah.
I haven't seen many pieces of corn wearing tassels, so I
Yeah.
guess those workers are doing a great job.
Yes.
What is
Yeah.
that? What does
So
that
I
mean?
did, I
Tassel.
did some investigating too, because I have this vague recollection of it from growing up in Indiana. So I'm
Uh-huh.
a fellow Midwesterner originally, like Jordan, and it's often a rite of passage for teenagers, kind of their first job or work the summers in the cornfields, and basically it involves taking the tops or tassels of some of rows of corn stalks off the top of them, and it apparently helps with the pollination process of the corn.
Okay.
And that farmers will plant rows on the perimeter of the field where the tassels aren't removed, so that way the seeds don't go drifting off onto someone else's field or property.
I had a whole
So there we
corn
go.
cob burlesque scene playing out in my
Yeah.
head before that explanation, so thank
Yeah,
you.
you're welcome. You're very welcome. It's why I'm here, providing the service.
And the corn was dancing to
And the
the
corn was
Geordie music,
dancing to
unfortunately.
the Geordie music with some tassels.
That's right.
Uh, but he does share that it really helped him learn the value of hard labor, and that he slept great every night after working in the cornfields all day in that summertime heat. So it could be pretty grueling. And I remember. So when I was in 8th grade, and we were getting close to the end of the school year, I remember our guidance counselors, and so they started hitting us up for this when we were like 13, 14 years old, and to work the summer between our 8th grade year and freshman year of high school to do this corn detasseling. And I remember I was all excited because I saw on this flyer they were handing out in school that you could make, like $4 an hour. And I went home and told my parents and was all excited. And then my dad said, "Well, Lise, what this involves." And so he explained it to me, as well as how apparently some pretty sizable spiders can also be living in amongst the corn rows. And so that was a pretty good deterrent for me. But your 13-year-old brain, you take a look at that and you go, "Oh, money." And then my now 51-year-old brain laughs and says, "How did I get that notion in my head that I would want to do that?" But it's admirable work, and I applaud Jordan for that. And the good thing is that it's also good to know what you don't want to do. So that's a great lesson too, knowing what you don't want to do going forward, and sometimes that's pretty valuable, even if it's a shorter stint or an early experience. So there we go, corn detasseling. Pretty interesting. And our next story is from Tracy in Spokane, and she shares that her best job is her current one, where she's worked as a claims adjuster at an insurance company for over 20 years. And she shares that while it's often difficult to see people experiencing loss or pain, when a claim needs to be made, especially when there's a bad accident or natural disaster and they have to basically start over, that it really means a lot to her to be able to support clients, get them through a tough and stressful time. I mean, that must be really rough when you've got clients that you've worked with over the years and then something like that happens to them. I imagine that takes quite a lot of empathy and compassion to do that work too. And so Tracy, really applaud you for that. She also adds that she's wondering what she'll do when she retires or needs to stop working for one reason or another, as this career as a claims adjuster is basically all she's known for a long time. So, Tracy, what you might want to think about is, well, keep in mind that, just because we turn a certain age or there's an opportunity to leave or we decide to leave what we're currently doing, even if it's something that we've been doing for a long time, it doesn't mean that life stops and that you can't still work in some capacity, So whether that's a part-time basis, contract basis, there's a gradual exit, you weave in and out of work, and to do so, it could be helpful to really take a look at your skills and strengths and think of how you can channel those perhaps in a different way. So not from what you're currently doing, what are all those lessons, those strengths and skills you've built over time, and then how can you potentially channel those into something different? And often I think we can get ourselves into this trap thinking that we have to go a certain direction or be a certain role when what that does is potentially really box us in. And so, I would just really encourage you to think about how can you take transferable skills and strengths and just where else can you apply these? And also what are some possibilities? I mean, a great analogy that I heard recently around this is if you take a look at the band the Rolling Stones, here's a group that they perform when they want to, they work when they want to, and they pull back when they want to. And so even though, we don't have the fame and fortune of the Rolling Stones, and a lot of us may not have the luxury of not working, still, it's, thinking about it in terms of what's going to provide you flexibility. And, can you weave in and out of work? And are there options for you going forward? So just a recommendation there. But many thanks, Tracy, for sharing that story and about your work and asking that question too. And we're coming up here for our next break. And when we come back from break, I'll share a couple additional stories and questions from listeners and also preview what's on tap for next week's show. And just a reminder that if you have a story that you'd like to submit about your best job or worst job, you can do that by emailing reignitingyou@gmail.com. You can also call and leave me a voicemail, an audio recording of your story at 360-436-6496. That's 360-436-6496. More stories to come right after our next break.
Are you feeling challenged or frustrated without a plan for what's next in your career and life? Are you seeing writings on the wall for needing to make a mid to late career change and don't know how or what to do? Coach Lisa Downs of New Aspect Coaching can guide you to what's next, providing a fresh perspective and supporting you to create a clear and compelling vision for your future and a plan to move forward. Call Lisa at 425-216-3015. That's 425-216-3015. New Aspect Coaching, fresh perspectives for your career.
I'm Nathan Mumm, and I'm the host of Tech Time Radio. Tech Time Radio is officially on KKNW from Saturdays from 4 to 5 p.m. You can listen to our show live. We are excited to also then rebroadcast our episodes on Thursday morning from 6 to 7 a.m. The hosts cover top tech stories with a funny spin.
That's good. So, Hooked on Phonics worked for you, didn't it?
It did, just a little bit. Grab your weekly technology without half technology for the everyday common person.
Have a career transition related question or want to share your best or worst job story? Call 360-436-6496. That's 360-436-6496. Just leave a voicemail and we'll answer your question or share your story on a future show. Stay tuned for more Reigniting You with Lisa Downs.
Alternative Talk 1150 online at 1150kknw.com.
Welcome back to Reigniting You, a new show that discusses timely issues and topics about career transitions for Gen Xers and Boomers. I'm your host, Lisa Downs. We're continuing our first episode that's focused on listeners' best and worst job stories that will be a regular feature the fourth week of each month. I'm here with our producer, Eric. So, Eric, what resonated for you from those first couple of stories before our break?
Well, of course, I enjoyed learning about the corn. and I was pleasantly surprised to hear that that our one listener that was working as an insurance adjuster really enjoyed that job because I'd say the stereotype of, what insurance adjusters do is that it's going to be dull or dry and, not an exciting job. But it sounds like she really enjoys it. And it sounds like there is actually some really interesting aspects to it. So I think that's very cool. And you
Cool.
you can't necessarily understand what a job is really about by just seeing like movies and TV, I think.
Right,
Yeah.
right. Or, the commercials on TV
Right.
for your friendly insurance representative.
Exactly.
Doesn't really give you much of a picture. And yeah, I know, for me, I worked for a while doing management and leadership and professional development for one of our local insurance companies here. And it was great to learn a bit about that industry and just the care and nurturing of the client relationships and just the quality of the people working in that industry. And yeah, I agree. You never really know until you hear people's stories and talk about their experiences and how cool it can be. So very cool. Just a reminder again that you can submit your best or worst job story by emailing it to reignitingyou@gmail.com or leaving me a voicemail recording by calling 360-436-6496, and I'll then share it live on the air next time around at the end of November. So our next story is from Jeanette in Seattle, who shares that her worst job was when she worked as a paralegal at a large law firm for what she says was a boss from hell who was all about punishing you for mistakes, throwing you under the bus when you made a joint decision on how to handle something, and then call you out for it in front of coworkers or clients if there was a negative reaction. Yikes. That sounds like, some sort of alum from a Bad Bosses Academy or something. It's like, what is up with that?
Speaking of movies, I'm
Yeah,
sure that sounds like straight out
Horrible
of Bad
Bosses,
Bosses
is
or
that it?
something.
Yeah.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah, it's like, here at the Bad Bosses Academy, everything you should never do.
This thing writes itself.
It does. Really does write itself. And she also shares that she still has some resentment toward the firm, even after being gone for many years, because there were also apparently some bad coworker experiences with gossip, bad mouthing when you started to show your skills. So sounds like a pretty toxic work environment, and very happy you got out of that one, Jeanette. That had to be tough, and but glad that you got out of that situation eventually for sure. And also just by that last piece about the bad mouthing when you started to show your skills, that sounds like a kind of some classic leveling behaviors. So people trying to pull you back down perhaps to their performance level when you start to shine and really show your skill set. And that's not fun either. And, also dealing with resentment is hard because that situation happened to you. You were hurt by it. That matters. And I'm sure really felt like a betrayal. And at the same time, it's also important to do what you can to let it go. And I know that's easier said than done. And there's definitely been experiences and times I know for me and, other people I talk with who, it can be tough to let go of things like that because it does hurt and it's there and it happened. But really important that you do what you can to let it go. And often you have to forgive people and because we're humans, right? And, we're humans. We make mistakes every single day. We make mistakes all the time. And sometimes we have to forgive ourselves too, for our role in things and our own reactions and responses. So it doesn't make it any less of a difficult experience, but, really encourage you to think about, who might I need to forgive here or, what can I do to let things go? Sometimes it can be helpful too with that to, for some folks it helps to note it down, what was it there that you want to let go of so you can move forward. So sometimes it's writing it down, on a piece of paper, throwing the paper in the trash. I've even known some folks who set it on fire, though, you'd have to be careful about that. So in a safety first type of approach. But, what do you need to do to let it go physically and also mentally, emotionally, that piece. And think about, what am I doing in the present moment? And often it can be about really living in the present, living in today. So what can I do today to move forward and to put this type of experience in the past where it really needs to live? We can spend so much time of our lives focused on what happened in the past and projecting into the future. So all of these, bad things that could happen in the future, when really we need to focus on the present. So really encourage you to think about that piece as well and hope that's helpful. So thanks so much for sharing that. And we've got another story today from Carla in Everett. Her best job was when she was a postal carrier back in her hometown. And she says she had to leave it due to the physical toll on her, and she misses it. Though she always enjoyed working her route, talking to neighbors and customers, and that it was great when kids she knew would come out and chat if they were around, especially this time of year when they'd show off their Halloween costumes. So, Eric, that must have been pretty fun to have kids you know and see them as you're working day to day and
Sure.
seeing their fun costumes for Halloween and engaging with them. So I'm sure she probably had some fans who would watch for her to come with the mail and want to see her. So that sounds like a lot of fun. And she's probably got some great stories there too along the way.
Yeah, I got to say, our mail carrier is letting us down, not wearing costumes.
Yeah.
Step up your game.
That's right.
No, I mean, that I'm a person that doesn't typically dress up for the Halloween
Yeah,
costume
me
parties.
neither.
So I can't call anybody out on not doing it, but I got to admit it does bring a smile to my face when I see other folks in the office or mail carrier or anybody in their
Yep.
place of work dressed up.
Absolutely.
having
Especially
fun.
kids, having fun with it
Yep.
and getting out there in their outfits. Always fun when they'd come to the door with, for trick or treating and that's great. That must have been pretty fun. So Carla also shares that it is hard to leave something you enjoyed. And it is, and I'm so glad you got to have that work experience and that now you're away from the physical toll that probably took on you over the years. So definitely, again, hard, admirable work at times and really appreciate that. But so glad you got that experience. And definitely, there are definitely aspects of different roles too that, I think about roles that I've had over the years and aspects of them that I miss too. So, I hear you. And sometimes it's helpful to think about what you can take from that experience and apply it elsewhere. So, what's a way you can replicate what gave you joy from that experience and apply it in a different situation? How can you, maybe get a similar connection with people, even though it's not the same type of work or role? Because it is really hard, when you leave something that you look forward to every day, that really brought you a sense of satisfaction, a sense of fulfillment to your days, and that sense of joy day to day. So, but if you can narrow down, home in on, what was it in particular that gave you joy from the experience, and then is there something there that you can take and apply? It's kind of again in a different situation, a different context, or people. How can you connect with people? Of course, that's a little tougher these days, and what we're going through with the pandemic. But even virtually, how can you hop on a call? How can you get into an online virtual platform, connect with people? That's just so important as well, and something to keep in mind. And just to make sure you've got that people connection going, however you can too. So, Eric, what are your thoughts on these couple of stories? What did you find interesting?
Well, I got to admit I misheard because I was thinking that it was her, the mail carrier,
Oh, in
Jeanette, was
costume?
dressing up in the costume when she did her route. And I thought that was so awesome. But she was talking about the kids on her route
Yeah.
wearing those costumes.
Well, she might
So,
have too. She just didn't disclose that piece. So.
Yeah. But either
Yeah.
way, that sounds like fun. And, I always think it's cool when people find things that they love and focus on that thing that they love, because every job, it doesn't matter what you do, you're going to have things that you don't love
Oh,
about
yeah.
it, that you have to do it. But you're trying to focus on the things that you do love about it, I think makes it easier to, stick with that job and to do a good job as you do that job.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're right. There's always things that we don't enjoy. Any job has its parts that we view as tedious or mundane or just tasks that are not necessarily
or unnecessary,
or unnecessary
often too,
often, endless meetings,
Yep.
things like that.
Yep.
Or just things that aren't really our strength, our kind of our core skill set, and yet we have to do them anyway because
Right.
they're part of the role, and we need to do those things, and we can't always delegate, even though we may want to delegate. It's like we can't always do that necessarily. So, yeah, very true. So thanks for that, Eric, too. And thank you, Carla, and everyone for sharing your stories. It's really great to hear them. And I hope those of you hearing this, our audience, found value in the insights and perspectives. And remember that if you'd like to submit your best or worst job story or have a career transition question, you can send it to reignitingyou@gmail.com or call and leave it by audio through voicemail by calling 360-436-6496. Again, that's 360-436-6496. And then I'll go ahead and share it just like today, live on the air, the next time this episode comes around, the last Wednesday of November. So it's already time for us to start wrapping up, and time for today's Reignition recommendation, your weekly career transition tip. My suggestion for you this week is to identify a skill or strength that you can transfer to another situation or environment, and then seek an opportunity to use it in that different setting. And this really can be anything. So showing empathy, negotiating, listening, problem solving, organizing, any skill that you would say is a strength and a positive for you. And by thinking about, how can I apply this somewhere else or in a different way, it really is also a way to build confidence that you can be successful in new roles and circumstances, especially if you've been doing the same thing for a long time, the same type of work or role for a while, and aren't necessarily used to a lot of change and transition. So, Eric, thanks for your participation and support today, and hope it was fun for you to hear our listeners' stories.
Absolutely. Please keep them coming.
Yeah, absolutely.
Next time you do the show, it'll be real close to Thanksgiving, so
it will.
maybe folks can talk about what they're thankful for with their jobs.
That'd be great. Yeah, what are you thankful for? I'm a big fan of thinking, day to day, what are you grateful for? So what's something that you're thankful for, grateful for? That'll be great timing for that piece as well. And that's also a way to really stay positive. So when you're in a time of a lot of change and transition, or feeling down, or that you're in a rut, it's always a great thing to think, what am I grateful for? What do I have in my life that's a happy part of my life that I can feel good about? Join us next Wednesday at 3 o'clock when my next guest, Ariel Hubbard of Hubbard Health Solutions, will be here to help me answer our first ever career transition question of the month for November. Thanks for joining us today, and we'll talk to you next week on Reigniting You.